It is February, and we're going to start off the month with film, because that's my favorite category. Now, for all you 90s kids, the biggest thing out there right now is Power Rangers. That's right, there's a Power Ranger movie. I know some of you were sitting there thinking, there's a Power Ranger movie? Yeah, and it comes out in 2017. Now, they're shaking things up a little bit. In 2015, Power Rangers gained traction because of 3 different fan films. Not all of them were the best. Now, they had MMPR, which is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which was a fan film that I haven't seen yet because it's really hard to find. They have a website out there. There is a trailer. I put it in an article on my MOVIEPILOT page. You can check that out. But, like I said, haven't seen it yet. Then there is Zordon. This is a fan film that's about an hour long. It actually goes through the origins of Zordon. Instead of the Power Rangers, it's unique, yes. Is it good? That's for you. Now, the biggest thing out there, obviously, when it came to fan films was Power/Rangers. Not to be confused with Power Rangers that's coming out in 2017. This was a fan film. It was done by Joseph Kahn. James Vanderbeek helped him write it. It is awesome. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you should totally check it out. If you're like me, late 20s, or you're in your early 30s and it was something that you really, really loved as a kid, this fan film is the Power Ranger film you've been waiting for. It's violent. It's crazy. It's intense. The main thing is the violence. For people like us that grew up on it, now that we're adults, we can handle a little bit more. So it's nice to get a fan film that's kind of like focused on the fan, the original fan. Now, let's think about the fact that there are a lot of people out there being like, oh, they're making a new Power Ranger movie, man. It's going to be made for kids. This is totally going to be for kids. Yeah. Think of this statement. Of course it's going to be for kids. Power Rangers has always been for kids. When you started watching it, were you an adult? You were a kid. Exactly. Because children could follow the show, be interested in all the fight scenes, and not be affected by the fact that the storyline wasn't that good. Ever. However, the characters were awesome and they were intense, obviously. My favorite one was the Green Ranger because he became the White Ranger and he was still just as awesome. So I grew up absolutely loving him. But enough of that. Let's actually talk about the film that's coming out because, like I said, they're shaking things up. Biggest news that came out, Elizabeth Banks joined the cast. Now, I know a lot of people are sitting there being like, oh, man, they cast Elizabeth Banks? And then there's other people like, oh, man, they cast Elizabeth Banks? But I will say this. Elizabeth Banks, 1, not that bad of an actress, and 2, she kind of looks like Rita. That's not even a joke. Yeah. So, having her on board, I don't think that's going to be reckoning for better casting, because a lot of people are being like, well, if this is the kind of casting they're doing, I can't wait to see it. Mind you, all 5 Rangers are already cast. Now, they're not really knowns, they're mainly unknown actors, but they got some good ones. Now, the biggest shakeup, I think, in my opinion, is the fact that they finally broke the race stereotypes. Because back in the day, obviously, Black Ranger was a black guy, Yellow Ranger was an Asian chick, the rest were white people. So it kind of was very limited and had very racial tones. And I'm sure if you watched as a kid, you were always like, what the fuck? But then now as an adult, they're changing it up. Biggest thing for me, Blue Ranger, going to be played by R.J. Kyler. Black actor. You might know him if you ever saw Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. He played Earl. I think he's a promising young actor, and I think it's awesome that they're finally switching up the actual race roles. Black Ranger, played by an Asian dude. I think it's pronounced Lindy Lou. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But he doesn't really have a huge Hollywood background. He's an Asian actor. He's in pretty good shape. Probably has martial arts in his background. I haven't really researched that. I'll put that in my article and research it later. So yeah, the Black Ranger is an Asian guy, the Blue Ranger is a black guy, and the Yellow Ranger is a Hispanic lady, Becky G. She's a singer and a performer. And then the lead roles are still white people. But, what are you going to do? They're still shaking it up a little bit. I'd say Naomi Scott is probably one of the bigger names that they brought to the project. Naomi Scott, out of all of them, I think has a promising career. She was in The Martian with Matt Damon. So I think bringing her on was interesting. She does fit the stereotype for Kimberly. I was in love with Kimberly as a kid, and now that they've casted her, I'm going to be in love with Kimberly as an adult. So I guess that happens. Either way, it's going to be an awesome movie, so you should totally check it out. When it comes out, we'll obviously keep you posted, try to figure out some more stuff. I don't know if Zed's going to be in it. I imagine he probably would. However, with Rita, and that's who Elizabeth Banks is playing, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. Rita Repulsa. So with her playing Rita, I imagine we're going to get Goldar, who is one of my favorites out of, all the characters in the universe. So crossing my fingers on that. But at the same time, Zed didn't come in until later. So I don't know if he's going to be seen in this one because they might follow some of the original structure. Or hell, man, they might throw it up in the wind. One of the cool things that I hope they really do is they haven't cast a Green Ranger. So I don't know if there's going to be a Green Ranger. But I hope, because he was awesome. Now, I don't know if you remember, and if you don't, or you never watched the original one, spoiler alert, but the Green Ranger, when he was first introduced, he moved to the school, he was a bad guy. Like, Rita possessed him pretty much, or she had a strong hold on him. She's the one that gave him the dragon coin that was allowing him to transform, and he also had that awesome shield, if you remember, that made him more powerful than the other Rangers. Plus, his Zord was totally badass. So when he first came in, when Tommy first came in, he was a bad dude. And then in the end, he destroys the Power Rangers. He sends Zordon packing. He puts a bug in Alpha 5, my little Alpha. And he pretty much just leaves them for dead. And then they finally get to the point where he battles with the Red Ranger. Ultimately, Tommy becomes good. But, like I said, moving on to what I consider bigger film news, Prometheus 2, Alien Covenant, Alien 5, Alien 8, who knows? Because it's changed so many different times. Now, originally, Ridley was very stand-on with this point. This is Prometheus 2. This is not an Alien prequel. However, it will delve into the Alien universe. He did say that several times. Now it's all changed, like, completely. The title is Alien Covenant. Now, the coolest thing I think about the promotional photo that they released is it's the first sequel in the entire franchise, and I know this is a prequel, not a sequel, but you know what I mean. First one in the entire franchise to use the original 1979 Alien font. So, kind of brings hope. Now, there has been some shakeups. There's been a couple things that have changed over the course of time. First of all, Noomi Rapace, out. Which means Elizabeth Shaw, out. Now that is official, 100%. Ridley Scott came out. It's been reported on Cinema Blend. It's been reported on a number of websites. She's gone. So Elizabeth Shaw, she's out. However, Fassbender is still in. So that means that we're still going to get David. Now, another thing that's kind of crazy is we've figured out plot lines that have been released, which is so far what we're hearing is there is a group of astronauts on a ship called the Covenant, and they find what they think is paradise with one inhabitant, David. Now, obviously, it's not going to be paradise because this is the build-up to Alien, and so we've heard a lot about what's going to happen with that. And by that, I mean, well, first of all, Ridley is obviously going for a hard R rating. The only one that did not receive an R rating was Alien vs. Predator, which was PG-13, and it showed. So obviously the hard R rating gives us what we really want. And one of my favorite new things that just came out is Danny McBride is in talks to be on board. Now, I like this for multiple reasons. One, Danny McBride is hilarious. He's absolutely hilarious. He's a great improv artist, but he can be serious. If you've ever seen Eastbound and Down, whenever Kenny Powers gets sad, whenever he's showing emotion, like, he can be kind of serious. But here's the reason I really like it. I feel like it's going to add a little bit of comedy to it. And I believe if you're going for the old school feel, comedy is definitely needed. There wasn't a ton of comedy, obviously, in the original Alien, but there were little tiny things in there. Now, will this be obviously a little bit more? I don't think they'll play to comedy, obviously, because it is a serious script, and Ridley is apparently all about making this as close to what he originally did as possible. So, I will say this, though. Everybody's coming out and being like, Ridley's original tale, he's going back to his original foundation, like Ridley's original story. He didn't write it, okay? Dan O'Bannon wrote it. And the only reason I harp on this a lot is because Dan O'Bannon, throughout the entire history of the Alien franchise, has just been dogged on. And as a screenwriter myself, I don't really appreciate whenever a screenwriter is buried. So the story, which I will say this, was written multiple times. I mean, David Giler gave it multiple shots. Walter Hill rewrote it. I'm sure that Ridley's storyboarding changed a lot of the story. However, the original essence of what Alien was written by Dan O'Bannon, and it was called Star Beast. and it was horrible. But never mind that, he still put it together, and I still have a lot of respect for him. So obviously they're not going to bring Dan O'Bannon back. He's not really doing anything with his career any longer. But I just always feel the need to say that. But Ridley Scott was the original director. It was his first delve into science fiction, and obviously he nailed it. So hopefully we're going to see a lot more of that. There are planes flying by. Not sure when it's coming out. However, recently I did just go and pick up my Blu-ray, which I have every single one of the Alien Anthology, the original 4 films in there, and it has all these awesome special features. I'm going to put a review of that up later so you kind of know what you're getting with that. But after revisiting it, cannot wait for Alien Covenant to start happening. You know, there's been so many different things happening with the Alien franchise. One director has it, then another director has it. It's coming, then it's not coming. It's so frustrating because Alien is such a fantastic franchise. It's so beautiful. So, like I said, cross your fingers. Not sure when that's coming out, but like I said, as news develops, we're obviously going to cover it. We're going to do a couple articles on MoviePilot about that too, so check into that. And rounding it all off, I want to focus on what I consider to be the biggest film news, even though it's not really news, and that is Quentin Tarantino is taking a bow soon. And that makes me really sad. He has 2 films left. Now, there's been whispers, obviously, through people that know him, and, you know, he's talked a lot about, you know, what he wants to do with his career, but in a roundtable on the, I think it was the Hollywood Insider, not sure, I'll make sure to post a link for that, but, he actually just came straight out and he said it, which is kind of funny because Ridley Scott's sitting right there beside him the whole time. And Quentin just straight up said that he only has 2 more films left. He's always said he's only going to do 10 films. And The Hateful Eight was number 8. So obviously there's a lot he's not including. Obviously True Romance, not including that. He wrote it. He didn't really do it. That was actually done by, I can't remember the director on that one. He also did, but it was part of a 2-part script because obviously Natural Born Killers, which was done by Oliver Stone, that was actually originally one script. True Romance, Natural Born Killers, they split it. They made 2 different movies with it. Could you imagine what that would have been like if they would have made it together? And, dude, what if that was his last film? Is he went back and just did that? Also, Dusk Till Dawn, one of my absolute favorite films, but he only wrote it. Rodriguez directed that. So, and Quentin Tarantino was a star. So, obviously, like, you got to look at what he's actually doing. I wrote an article about that, too. It'll have a list of all the ones that are actually included in case you don't know for yourself, but you probably do because he's a legend. As he gets ready, I kind of, in my opinion, would like to ask, what would you like to see him do? Because personally, I mean, we've seen him do westerns, and obviously we've seen him do crime, we've seen him do the ghetto movies. I'd like to see his hand in like a horror science fiction type of thing, which I think would be really fun, and either a comedy, which I'm not sure if Tarantino can do, but I feel like if he did, would be so interesting because he changes the genre so much, or what if he did like a love drama? You know, like a Quentin Tarantino like love tale that's not like Natural Born Killers, but I'm talking like a more, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't like to see that. Because you know what? The thing about Tarantino is the fact that he is original. So he's going to obviously do whatever he wants with his last 2 films. And they're obviously probably going to be fantastic. But the last couple we did were time period pieces. So I'd kind of like to see him come back into contemporary and come back into modern time and kind of spin it off with the other 2. Now, I know you're probably thinking the same thing I was thinking when I heard the news, which is, what the hell is he going to do if he's not doing movies? Ridley asked him the same question. And Quentin Tarantino's response was he wants to write plays and novels. To which Ridley Scott responded, oh, the same thing. It's the same thing. And Tarantino is like, I agree with you. That's what I think. However, I don't know if I agree that it's the same thing because I feel like the stage plays are more limited with what you can do. It's more character and dialogue driven, which, you know what? Tarantino is a dialogue driven writer, so he'd probably be fantastic at writing plays. Novels, I think they're very freeing. You have very broad range, but when it comes to the grammatical errors and whatnot, you got to be a little bit more on point with screenwriting. You can kind of open it up with lingo, which is a little bit more freeing as a writer. I also feel like with novels, for me personally, it's too much ground. You know, I like writing screenplays because I think in movies. I think in 2-hour increments. Like, I've watched them my entire life. I grew up sitting on a couch watching movies with my mom and whoever my stepdad was at the time, and I just grew up watching them. And movies, they didn't really raise me, but they opened my mind, and they let me escape my little world. And then I'd have action figures, go figure, and I would like make my own little movies with the action figures, and I would name the characters, and even if the character was like, say I had a Deadpool action figure, he wasn't Deadpool, he was something else, you know? And I feel like with movies, and you think in that structure and you think in your characters, I think it's easier to deliver a story because what screenwriting's taught me is to cut out the fat. You know, you're just telling, this is the story. This is what matters. Why is today different? You know what I mean? In just this time period. So, I don't know. I feel like with novels, it's a little bit more broad-ranged. However, if Quentin Tarantino wrote a book, I'd buy it just on the name, just to see where it goes. If he wrote a play, I'd love to see it. But if he directed it. Not like Quentin Tarantino writes and then other people direct. I would like to see his directing as well as his writing when it comes to the stage. However, you know, like I said, as a screenwriter, Tarantino, you have inspired me. You have changed the way that I view films entirely, and the way you handle the media, the way you are yourself, the way that, you know, even though you come off as eccentric and quirky and a little bit weird, I love that because I'm the same way. And to see you do what you've done with film, to see you go out there and just be your own, damn, man, you know, hats off, seriously. And you're gonna be so missed, like so much. But I have a feeling you're coming back. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna just leave for good. Yeah, you've always said you're gonna do 10 films, and you're pretty true to your word, but you also said you weren't gonna do the Hateful Eight after the script got leaked. And we know who leaked it. But you said you weren't going to do it, and then you did it anyway. You know why? Because you are a man who's about your fans, and that's why we love you so much. So, like I said, if you only do 2 more films, take like a 5 to 10 year hiatus and come back, we're probably just going to see even more amazing stuff. Or we'll see Tarantino be a producer. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. A world without Tarantino. I mean, hell, we're living in a world without Bowie right now. So, things happen. That's it for film. So we're going to be back next week with a little bit more. We're going to talk a little bit about sequels coming out this month that you had no clue about. Little Easter egg here. SLC Punk 2, it's already filmed and it's coming out this month. Select places. So we're going to cover stuff like that next week. Also this week we're going to put up a right or wrong, and we're also going to do another figure review. So keep posted. Apologize for the delay last week. There was a lot of construction going on in the building here, and audio was a nightmare. But thanks for tuning in, for spending some quality time together. Stay tuned, subscribe, leave comments. Have a good one.
In an insane world, it was the sanest choice.